Why couldn't Moses adopt a dog? Because the shelter was non-profit. Okay, today we're gonna be diving into tax shelters and tax havens because these are two very important approaches that can help people reduce their tax liability. So if you haven't used a tax shelter or a tax haven before, what I'm gonna do is break down exactly what they are. And if you stick to the end, I'm gonna give you some real practical advice on how you can start using them immediately. Stay tuned. Hey there and welcome to our channel. I'm Sean with Life Accounting, the accounting company that helps you save on taxes and build more wealth. Let's go ahead and get started with number one. What are tax havens? When you first hear about tax havens, they're often very mysterious and seem exclusive to the ultra rich, but that's not necessarily the case, okay? So let me make it very easy for you to understand. Simply put, a tax haven is a location that has a very favorable tax law. It could be a state, it could be a country, or it could even be a specific territory. Some of the best tax havens have no income taxes, or at the very least have very small tax rates. And the truth is, many corporations already take advantage of tax havens. In fact, you will probably find it very difficult to find a Fortune 500 company who does not use tax havens as a part of their tax strategy. But that doesn't mean it is only for large corporations and large companies, because there are plenty of small business owners who also implement this tax strategy to get tax-free profits. And depending on your income and your tax bracket, that could improve your business's profit margins by over 30%. And so I'm going to give you some places where you can do that. But first, let's talk about number two. What are tax shelters? So tax shelters are pretty straightforward and actually something that many taxpayers already take advantage of, okay? You just may not know that it's called a tax shelter. So simply put, a tax shelter is a method where you delay receiving your income right now, like in the current tax year where the income was actually made, to usually put it aside in some kind of investment or retirement account. Hence the name tax shelter, right? Because essentially you're sheltering or shielding your income from taxes temporarily. And we'll talk about how and why you will want to use tax shelters in just a second. But really quick, before I do, if you are enjoying this video, please hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm. That's all we ask. And subscribe if you want to continue to learn ways where you can save on taxes. All right, let's move on to number three, the difference between tax havens and tax shelters. All right, so let's do a quick quiz just to make sure we're all on the same page and understand the difference between tax havens and tax shelters. So a tax haven is what? Okay, what I'm gonna do is put some options on the screen and you tell me which one it is. If you said option B, that's correct. Remember, tax havens are typically locations where you have tax rates that are extremely low. So then what is a tax shelter? If you said option C, that's also correct. It's simply deferring your income now and paying taxes later. Cool, now that we're on the same page, let's go ahead and talk about number four. How can you use a tax haven? And it's actually very simple, right? You just need to move to a tax haven. Now, the bigger question is, what are some of the most popular tax haven locations? Well, here are two of my favorite tax havens. First, you have Puerto Rico. I like Puerto Rico for a couple big reasons. Firstly, it is a U.S. territory, so you still get all the same benefits and the protections that states have in the United States. And secondly, residents of Puerto Rico are exempt from paying any federal income taxes. So many people can save between 10% to 37% extra in income simply from moving to Puerto Rico. The second favorite would be Bahamas, because again, you don't need to pay any federal income taxes. And in my opinion, it is just a beautiful place to be. Now in the Bahamas, there are areas with great development and infrastructure, so I think it would be an awesome place to go. Now there are other tax havens such as Bermuda, the UAE, Cayman Islands, and Monaco, just to name a few. Now, it is important to note that your income must be made in the tax haven. For example, you can't work remotely for a company that's based in like Texas and then move to the Bahamas and expect not to pay any federal taxes, because you will. Now, ultimately, would I recommend my clients or anyone watching this video to move to another country or another territory or another state to save on taxes? Well, that seriously depends. And for the most part, that is a personal decision. Okay. You need to decide if you want to move your family, if you want to leave other family members or leave your other relationships behind. And if you want to leave behind your overall lifestyle, like removing the places that you love to go and frequently visit, the trails, the stores, etc. I mean, that's a pretty big decision for anyone to make. But I am curious to know, okay, would you move to save on taxes? Tell me in the comment section below. So when it comes to tax havens, it's simple. Move there, make some money, and you will drastically save in taxes. However, when it comes to tax shelters, there are a little bit more tactics involved. So let's go ahead and talk about number 5. How can you use tax shelters? So the concept is this, okay? Let's say, for example, you are in a 24% tax bracket and you're looking at a lot of tax liability. Well, by using a tax shelter, you can reduce your taxable income, thus lowering your tax bracket maybe from 24% to 12% in the current tax year. And then later, you can take your money out of the tax shelter, preferably during a year where you made little income. So let's say that year you didn't make any income, so you end up in the 10% tax bracket. Okay, that's the concept. Okay, remember, you're basically delaying your income, sheltering your income, and accelerating your expenses, and cash out only when you need the income again, so you're paying lower tax rates. Okay, so I'm going to give you 4 legal and popular tax shelters. The first one is a tax favorite, the retirement account. I won't go too in depth here because I mean, we talk about them all the time and they're usually the lowest hanging fruit and very easy for people to go ahead and use and set up. Now, 2 very popular retirement accounts will be your 401ks and your IRAs. So you can put income into your 401k tax-free and then use that money to invest in other assets and watch your wealth grow without having to pay taxes on it. And I'm just going to leave it right there for now. But if you want to learn more about it, I'll go ahead and put a link to a video in the description that breaks down different retirement accounts. Another popular tax shelter is medical saving accounts. These are your HSA health saving accounts or your FSA flexible spending accounts. So just like before, you can put your income into a HSA account tax-free, but this time you can only use the money on qualified medical expenses or healthcare costs. Now, just like before, there are some limitations and some nuances to the health saving account. So I'll go ahead and put a link to a video down in the description below if you need a deeper dive. And speaking of that, I'll try to go ahead and dump all these videos into a playlist and name it Tax Shelter. So you can just go through that if you want to get really deep on how you can use tax shelters to reduce your tax liability. All right, shelter number 3 I have is business ownership. Now, business is unlike the other 2, okay? Because with business, you aren't really putting income into a deferral account, but it still uses the method or the line of thinking where you are deferring your income now and paying taxes later. Let me explain why. Because here you're using your income, putting it into a business, and now your business will have deductions that will reduce your taxable income. And as your business grows and becomes more profitable, then you should be able to have more income. And at that point, you can decide, okay, should I take my income now or should I defer it and invest it back into my business for tax purposes? And starting and growing a business is, of course, one of my favorite tax strategies and just ways to build wealth. But if you don't want to start a business, then you can use the 4th tax shelter, which is investing into real estate. Now, just like with business, investing in real estate isn't a direct way of moving and deferring your income, but the concept remains the same, because when you buy real estate, you get to write off property taxes, mortgage interest, and if it's an investment property, even my favorite tax deduction, depreciation, which in the long term can help you reduce your taxable income now and make more money later. Before we end, remember to let me know if you would move to another state, country, or territory to save on taxes. Now we have 2 more videos coming up breaking down some other tax havens, some other tax shelters. So make sure you check those out next, and I'll see you over there.